Hello and welcome to Buddha and the Coach vlog powered by Soul Performance Academy. I'm your host, Dan Mickle. The Buddha and the Coach is a weekly vlog focused on looking at the teachings of the Buddha in a coaching light. The Buddha and the Coach is proud to be sponsored by It's Called Normal Athletics. ICN Athletics makes the extraordinary ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel at this sport, and ICN offers the programs and education to make it normal for adaptive athletes to play on any court. Help us make the beach volleyball court a place for everyone. For more information or to make a donation, please visit icnathletics.com. It's Called Normal Athletics, a 501c3 corporation. And as usual, I'd like to thank Dave and John and everyone involved at It's Called Normal Athletics for all the great work that they are doing and for the sponsorship of the show. This week we are on episode 5, and the fifth teaching of the Buddha that we're going to look at is love is a gift of one's innermost soul to another so both can be whole. I know what you are going to say. It's creepy. It doesn't have to be. We can love our team, our players, our fellow coaches, and not be creepy about it. But we have to make a decision. Are we fully going to love our players, or are we going to build a wall and a bubble around us in hopes to protect ourselves? And again, we can love our players without being creepy. What I'm talking about is caring deeply for the whole player, their athletics, their academics, their social life. Being involved in all aspects. Now, I'm not saying that every coach or a coach needs to check in and you're allowed to date this person, you can see this movie and you can't see this movie. What I'm talking about is knowing, being involved in understanding the life that our players in, the decisions that our players are making. What our player brings to the team or the program, not just athletically, socially, educationally, emotionally. What do they bring to the team? And obviously, just like last week when we talked about everything's in relationship to everything, having love means that we have the chance to be hurt by our players. For me, that's a risk willing to take. And I will tell you very personally, a few years ago, I tried to be a very neutral person. Society was changing. We hear all the horror stories about coaches being inappropriate with players and athletes. So I built that shield. I did the minimum off the court that I had to. Not because I didn't want to, I wanted to, but I didn't want to be caught in that weird area, that creepier zone. And it made me a worse coach. It made my program worse. There were times that my players are reaching out, begging for my love as a coach. And I built that little wall. Now, I'm glad to say that I've worked on that. That's probably been one of the biggest things that I've worked on in a long time in the coaching field. Because without me, that athlete is not whole. Without my love and my care for my athletes, without that love and my care for my staff, we're not whole. I'm not whole, they're not whole. We can all function not whole, but we're not going to function our best. We're not going to function as well if we know that the person on the sidelines really truly cares and loves us. Same with teammates. It's just like siblings. I love my siblings, but we don't always get along. We fight like cats and dogs sometimes, but I love them. And I will go to battle for them, and I will work very hard for them. If we as a team don't love each other, we're not going to battle as hard as we could. Most everyone's seen the movie 300 or heard the whole story. Do you think they would all fought so hard if they didn't love each other? If they didn't have that common love to make each other whole, knowing that if that person is gone, I'm not going to be whole. You have to expose yourself knowing that you might get hurt in that sense to love. You invest a lot of time and emotion, and then a player transfers or they quit the sport. It hurts. But that's because you cared and you loved and you're getting the best out of that player. I coached a very talented team at a youth club a few years ago. And again, I didn't want to cross or appear to cross into any weird zone, creepy zone, so I was very standoffish. And we never performed to the level of a team that we could have. And I'm convinced it's because I didn't show them love and they didn't show each other love. The team is not going to show each other love if the coach and the coaches aren't showing the team love. How do we expect our players? And again, I get it. This is a very tough subject. But we have to separate having love for our players and passion for our players versus the horror, creepy stories that we hear on the news a lot about inappropriate coaches. They are not the same thing. We are not talking about that. I am solely talking about giving a piece of yourself to your players to help them, to make them whole, knowing that you have their back. Letting them foster love for each other so that they know that they may not always agree, but they're fighting for the same cause. Their beliefs may be slightly different, but they want the same thing. And doing it out of love is what's going to get them there. And sometimes your love as a coach is the only thing a player has. Maybe they're away from home playing for you. Maybe they have a broken home. And you just being open and honest with them and caring for them is what keeps them going. I don't sit back and think about a lot of things that I regret. But one of the biggest things that I am most thankful for is that during that time when I was being very distant and emotionally just a blank sheet, because I thought that's what needed to happen, I'm thankful that I didn't have a player go through a major crisis. I don't know as a coach I could have recovered from that, knowing that because I wasn't giving that love may have affected someone's will and desire to live or to continue the sport. Something as simple as just being open and letting them know I care. Don't be afraid to care. Don't be afraid to love. There's a proper way to do it. It's not always bad. It's not always creepy. But it's almost always needed because that is what's going to complete them as a player, and it's what's going to complete you as a coach. During those years, we had some of the most successful years that I've had. But when I look back at those, they're not filled with joy. It was like going in and punching a card and going to work and getting paid for it, and there was no emotional attachment. and I regret it. I regret that I didn't have that relationship with those players. Because they deserved it. They deserved more from me. Because them remembering how much I cared, and I did care. But them remembering that would have been a lot more than them remembering, hey, we went 21-3 that season. Or we won this event. Or we achieved this. It's time for us as coaches to get reinvested in our players. It's time for us to open up and give them a piece of ourselves, to love them. That's what we're here for. That's how we build the community. We're not robots. They're not robots. We're all humans. And we work harder when we feel that someone believes in us and someone cares for us. And we just have to learn how we do that the most effective way, obviously the most ethical way. But it's okay for us to care and it's okay to love. Give it a try. How can you show your support and your care and your love for your players? It's more than just showing up at a graduation, showing up at a play. How are you truly going to embrace this journey that you're on with your players and support them and love them? That's what I want to see in the comments this week. Let's talk about it. How do we show this? Knowing that there's a chance that we're going to get hurt, but that's what it's about. That's what's putting yourself out there. How can we get our team to love each other? Doesn't mean it's always going to be a consensus, but we know if it's coming from love, then we don't have the hidden agendas. We don't have the egos. So let's talk about that. Again, like, share, subscribe, retweet, resend. Whatever you can do, let's get this conversation going. And again, thank you to It's Called Normal Athletics for their support. Please visit their website, icnathletics.com. And until next week, peace, love, and don't suck.